what do you think about the Warriors? We got a report earlier today from Zach Lowe that they have no interest in trading for or trading away Klay Thompson.
Right.
And that's been somebody who's been the heart of a lot of criticism with his play this year. Do you think this Warriors dynasty is over with how it's currently constructed?
How it's currently constructed, absolutely. I think I am the loudest when it comes to Klay disrespect, but I don't think he's the number one issue. But I do think he's a part of the issues for sure. I think Steph Curry and Steve, I think stubbornness is the word that comes with the fact, like that's the main word in all this, stubbornness. Steve Kerr's stubbornness to continue to ride with his 3 guys. Steph Curry's stubbornness to continue to ride out with his 2 guys. And then this team's stubbornness to kind of realize the issues, realize when they're at fault, look at themselves in the mirror. Draymond Green, for example, Klay Thompson, for example. So the word of the day for this topic specifically is stubbornness. I think as constructed, you got to look at the West and think this is not a team that can compete. Like this is, you have Steph Curry, who's playing at an MVP level. He's playing like a top 5 player in the world. You have Draymond, you have Klay. If you have a top 5 player in the world, your mindset is compete for a championship. So if
Unless
you
you're the
think,
Mavs.
if you,
Unless you're the Mavs last year.
Cook. But if you think that this is a team constructed to win in the West right now, I think you got to start really looking at yourselves in the mirror. I've never known the Warriors to make a move. Mike Dunleavy's a new guy, so you might see a new regime. They've been linked to Toronto too many times, but there's just not enough energy. You like going back to that Clippers game, you saw when the young players were out there, you just saw a different energy. You saw this team didn't look old. It's a different vibe. Sometimes you got to just trust in your gut and trust in your young players. And I think Kerr sometimes, even in that Kings game, like Moody was hot. He takes Moody out. And then after in the press game, he's like, I wanted to trust the veterans. But it's like you keep making the same mistake over and over and over again. Why do you keep doing it? And you're supposed to be this experienced head coach. Steve Kerr is definitely getting a shit ton of the blame. But I think as currently constructed, this team is a team that can't compete with the Lakers, the Phoenixes, the Denvers of the world. This team can barely compete with the Minnesotas and the OKCs of the world. It's a team that lost 4 straight games to those 2 teams back to back to back to back. So you got to make a move. And if you don't got to make a move, you got to get better. And I don't think this team has the talent to get better at the moment.
It's tough because we had a BR stream right after the Kings game, the day after. So emotions were a little bit different. You had a nice one against Clippers. That's going to make things feel a little bit better. But what we basically all said on the BR stream was there's a couple of ways to look at it, right? Number one, Steph Curry is going to be loyal to his guys, right? Sure. I think that report from Lowe, I don't think it's just a coincidence that Klay Thompson has been, struggling, even though he was solid that first half against the Kings. But throughout the season has been struggling. I do think that was Steph Curry either maybe a little leak or telling upper management saying, Klay Thompson's my guy. As long as I'm here, Klay's going to be with me. And, we've seen Klay Thompson in the past, of course, be integral to playoff runs, to championship runs alongside Draymond Green, all the veterans you have had. But if you want to continue to be a dynasty, I think there's going to be moments where you have to, move on from some players because we know Steph Curry, he's playing at MVP level. He's one of the best players in basketball and doesn't look like he's slowing down anytime soon. But to just assume that Klay Thompson at his age, coming off multiple injuries, even though we're a couple years past that, is just going to turn into the Klay Thompson of old, where he was, the second best 3-point shooter in the world, where he was this, top end level defender on the perimeter. I don't think we're ever going to get that Klay Thompson back. And Draymond Green, who, defensively has done his thing. And to his credit, too, he talked about this in the offseason, kind of his reluctancy to shoot. I feel like we've seen that kind of come back to a median this season.
He hit 4 threes in his first quarter.
He hit 4 threes?
Yeah, he's here. He's back.
Okay, yeah, he hasn't hit a lot of 4 threes in a quarter.
Back?
But
it's lit. So lit.
It is huge that Draymond Green is taking those threes and making those threes because that could really change the ceiling of your offense. But the fact that Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, of course, that 2022 finals run was, just as important as damn near everybody outside of Steph Curry, who was the engine, of course. The fact that he's struggling, and then you have the reports coming out of Klay Thompson and the contract weighing on him, the Andrew Wiggins situation about being out of shape. You have to have loyalty in the NBA to an extent. But I do think it's okay to move off players, right? completely different circumstance because the Celtics never won championships like the Warriors did. They never had a dynasty. But everyone was so loyal, me included, to guys like Marcus Smart, to guys like Rob Williams, who were just, they're Celtics. Like, they've always been there. Same thing with Klay Thompson. Same thing with Andrew Wiggins, although I wouldn't move on him quicker than I would Klay Thompson, where you know these guys as they are this team. They are Warriors. They are Celtics. But then you see Boston, who, listen, you moved up Marcus Smart, but this team with Porzingis looks completely different. And Rob Williams, who, I hope he stays healthy, of course, that was another concern where, when he's on the court, he's phenomenal, can be that rim protector, can catch lobs, can give you energy. But you do see that, listen, it hurts missing Rob, but we still have the best record in the NBA, and you're not, chomping at the bit to go out and make a move for someone, even though they do need to back up big. I think what I'm trying to say is the Warriors are going to be loyal to their guys. Steph Curry is going to be loyal to their guys. But if they want to continue this dynasty, I do think they need some infusion of new talent. I do think Klay Thompson's best days are likely behind him. I think Andrew Wiggins can get back to that level of player we've seen from 2022. He's still young. He still has the, defensive prowess to be that type of guy. But the Warriors we see right now is the same questions I had coming into the season, which was who is going to be that secondary shot maker, shot creator next to Steph Curry. I don't think they currently have this on the team. And now you have injuries piling up, even though Chris Paul isn't so serious. Gary Payton's going to be sidelined indefinitely. So I'd like to see some Brandon minutes, some Moses Moody more minutes, just to get a bit of we're seeing it here.
Yeah.
This is
No
and I'm happy.
No, it's there.
I'm happy Steve Kerr is staying by his word when he said, I messed up. I watched that Kings game back. I screwed up. I should have played Moody down the stretch. I'm happy he's seen some of the mistakes he's made, giving some of these younger guys who can hit shots, who can defend, rather than just going with the vets over and over again.
When you look at this Golden State Warriors team, you could take a look at that 2020 draft and look at that where that made the biggest hit on the future of the Warriors and their dynasty. When you took James Wiseman, you understood the selection, of course, because before the season, he was supposed to be the number one projected pick. As the draft came closer, we saw Anthony Edwards climb draft boards, but also LaMelo Ball, who I always felt comfortable that would have been my selection. Warriors needed a big, so I understand their logic of going out of James Wiseman, no doubt. But with James Wiseman being the, lack of better term, bust that he was for the Golden State Warriors, it really did impact them because even still, they lack that interior presence. Kevon Looney is an undersized big, can do a job, has done a job for a long time now. But their big move in the offseason to address the big position was Dario Saric, and he hasn't played bad by any means, but at the same time, you need more than a Dario Saric in that interior. I understand that he could stretch a little bit, but at the end of the day, that is not a needle-moving play. You trade off Jordan Poole, you bring in an aging Chris Paul, who is a solid playmaker but has struggled to find offense so far this season. I'm not going to count the Warriors out yet. I'm not calling them contenders. They weren't contenders last year. I don't think they're contenders this year. However, in terms of dynasty, so long as you have a top 5 player in the world in Steph Curry who's shown us no signs of slowing down, why am I to count out the Golden State Warriors who have shown us nothing but when so long as Steph Curry's on the court, this is a playoff team. And Klay Thompson, who's going through some woes right now, no doubt about it. The shot selection is definitely the biggest concern of them all. We understand he's aging. The defense wasn't always going to be there, especially after 2 significant injuries. But I think he'll find his eventually. 18, 19 games into the season, I'm not ready to write off Klay Thompson. I think that we saw it last year where he put together one of his best regular seasons by far, kind of lost some steam in the playoffs, especially late in that Kings series and in that Lakers series for sure. But we know what this trio can do when they're all at 100%. But Klay right now definitely has to find his. But when he does, you know that this Warriors team will be sound. Gary Payton being injured sucks. Him being out indefinitely definitely isn't great. But we could look at this Kings game going forward and think this was a positive for the Golden State Warriors, where now they understand, hey, we should be giving Moses Moody some more minutes because when he's hitting shots, he's a solid 3-and-D player for us. He could be crucial to what we want to do. And in terms of AirPod, also, he can get some more minutes and he can be impactful on the offensive side of the ball. There's just situations where you look at Steve Kerr and think he needs to be better. This Kings game could be that slap in the face that Steve Kerr needed to do that. And in situations where it seems as if Klay Thompson or Andrew Wiggins, who right now is dealing with a finger injury too, he's probably not going to play or he's not playing today, correct? There's going to be moments where Kerr needs to rely on the young guys, and I think that could be beneficial in the long term for this Warriors team. But again, it all begins with Steph Curry for me. So long as he's healthy, so long as he's playing basketball, you can't write off the Golden State Warriors. That's just a respect that he's earned.
I feel like we can write them off. They're not going to win a championship this year.
Listen, like I said, I'm not putting them contenders, but you have Steph Curry, you get respect. Simple.
If you got Steph Curry, you got respect to a degree, but do you think they're winning the championship?
I didn't think that they would win a championship the year they won a championship.
But do you think they're winning it this year?
No.
Do they have a chance this year?
I'm going to say no.
Do you think they have a chance this year, Riv, right now?
I said no already.
The Warriors, no.
But does that mean the dynasty's over?
It does mean if they don't win a championship, the
dynasty's over.
That's unfair, though, because when Kevin Durant left, the idea was that the dynasty's over. Correct? 3 years removed, you go and you win the finals.
But he said as currently constructed, which is...
No, I thought the question is the Warriors dynasty over?
The Warriors dynasty is over. When KD left, Klay Thompson had an ACL injury. He didn't play that entire season after KD left.
Did you think that Klay Thompson would ever get back to form after the ACL and Achilles?
No, I didn't.
But then, exactly, 2 years removed after that, they go and they win a championship.
He wasn't a top 3 reason why they won, though.
I agree.
So he didn't get back to form.
I agree.
So
also the competition in the West this
the
year
Warriors,
is super tough.
This year is also different. The West is definitely ascending.
Klay Thompson tore his ACL. He didn't play for that entire next year. They missed the playoffs. That's what led them to getting a top pick. Then the year after that, Klay Thompson tears his Achilles in the offseason. He doesn't play that entire year. The year that Klay came back healthy and that roster had Wiggins and Draymond, 100%, they were a title contender.
Remember, we were like 18-4 before Klay got back. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were running the table for Klay.
No, you guys were really good, but I'm saying coming into the season, I didn't have them as championship favorites, championship contenders.
No.
But again, that's me also not respecting, or I should have at least put more respect on Steph and Dre.
But in that offseason, Riv had them win the championship. I had them winning the championship that year too. They had the talent to win. This year, I don't think they do. I don't think they got the bench to win a championship. I think they're too old of a team. I think the West is caught up and they are better. And it's kind of ironic because Draymond Green back in 2018 or 2019 it was, he called out reporters for not bashing the Phoenix Suns enough for the failed development of Marquise Chris, who Marquise Chris was a top draft pick, and he was traded in his rookie season by the Suns. And Draymond said, you guys never blame the organization. You guys always blame the players, but you never want to hold the organization accountable when the teams don't develop them properly. And he kind of took a jab at reporters who have been open in criticizing the Suns organization at the time. The reason why I find it funny is because the Suns were a bad organization at the time. Well, the Warriors are this great 8+ organization. James Wiseman failed in your development system. Jonathan Kuminga, you can argue, is currently failing in that development system. Moses Moody is looking like the only bright spot out of the 3 swings that they took in the draft when they had high draft picks.
What was a swing?
They're still there.
He was a lottery
pick. They're swings. They're swings regardless. You never know who's going to be good, who's not going to be good.
I assume swing is like you take a chance. That's why I said yeah.
So it's kind of funny how Draymond Green bashed organizations for players being bad, but his organization, who's great, drafted highly touted and talented players, and they are not making an impact on that said team.
But can you say that he's going to call out management? Like, you can't blame him for not calling out his own management.
At the end of the day, I think that he will say that it was a failure on everybody.
I think
for James
once he
Wiseman.
retires, I think he'll be more vocal about that.
He has said that they failed James Wiseman, but ultimately, bro, you're good or you're not good. You know, some guys are good, some guys are not good. And what you mentioned with the draft, the Warriors missed too many draft picks to recover and to try to combine this timeline of old versus young. Had they hit on the 2nd overall pick back in 2020, they would have been in a great position. Had they taken Franz Wagner instead of Kuminga, who was the pick after, we're looking at the Warriors as a continued dynasty, even past when Steph maybe ultimately retires. So I think that is the biggest knock on this team. But this team's just too old, man. This team's not going to win. Like, they cannot compete with teams in the West right now. I don't think they can compete with the Lakers. They can't compete with the Nuggets. I don't think right now I have question marks against them against OKC because OKC's on the rise.
No doubt.
And I don't think they can compete with Minnesota and what they have in that length and that youth they have. I just think it's the passing of the torch. They are an older team. They won the championship in 2022. They deserve ultimate respect for that because they were able to win one without Kevin Durant, and they were able to continue the dynasty. But as for where it's going now, there's too much regression going on from their main guys outside of Steph. Their 4 best players, 4 of the 5 best, Chris Paul, who's 38, Klay is 33, Draymond is 33, Steph is 35.
You can still play good basketball at 33. I'm not saying that Klay has been playing great ball, but I'm talking Draymond specifically. His type of role.
No, Draymond's playing great ball.
He can
He's
be
playing
fine.
great, yes. But historically, and I think the LeBrons of the world, the Kevin Durants of the world, the Chris
Curry's
Paul
of the world.
Steph Curry's, the Chris Pauls at 35, 36 of the world,
Oh
make
my
us
gosh.
lose sight.
Can you calm down?
Sorry, Steph.
Make us
you wildin'.
lose sight that players, when they get to a certain age, just drop off. That's the fact. And most likely than not, the norm is going to be players that are older will drop off. And right now that's happened to Klay Thompson. I still think Klay can be a good player, but a player that can fulfill the role that the Warriors are asking him to fulfill in a potential title run, I think it's over.
It's tough. He just needs to really lock in on his three-point shooting, but be better in the shot selection.
James, talk to us.
I'll say this as a self-proclaimed representative of the Minnesota Timberwolves, Denver Nuggets, Oklahoma City Thunder, so on and so on. The future is now, old man. The Warriors are done. And when I say done, I mean in the championship contention context. So I think you guys all made great points in regards to, just the supporting cast around Steph and Curry. And I think that's where it really starts. Steph is still a top 5 player in the NBA. He's still up there. He can compete, but Chris Paul, not the same player, especially as a scorer. And, that's an interesting situation because you talk about okay, which guys you deal? Klay Thompson doesn't look the same because I don't think he has the same, quickness or stamina to just run around all these screens and shoot at the same efficiency. Wiggins has been off, but I still think Wiggins will figure it out. Draymond is putting people on chokeholds and just getting suspended. It's
I understand your frustration.
What'd you say, Riv?
I understand your frustration. You're a Timberwolves fan. I get it.
Je le déteste, which means I hate him in French. So I don't hate Draymond. I love Draymond sort of, but it's just it's a weird vibe. They're too small. They're too slow in the perimeter. I don't think they can stop the best bigs in the West. I don't think they can stop the best wings in the West. It's a really tough balance. And when you talk about the potential of acquiring a player at the deadline to improve this team, you got to question multiple things. Number one, how much do you prioritize the future? And number two, who are you willing to deal? And okay, it's actually 3. And number 3, whoever you get, is it that much of a needle mover in the West? I honestly think the answer is no there. You can say trade Klay Thompson, but like what Myers said, there's an emotional connection there, which is going to lower the possibility of a deal to happen. Same thing with Draymond Green. The Chris Paul thing, I think Chris Paul is going to be the one who ends up getting moved if they make a move because it's an expiring deal. It's Chris Paul, who cares? And then after that, it's do you deal Kuminga? Do you deal Moody? Because Moody's had a really good year. I think another team, you'll really value him in a deal. So you have to question, do we deal these young players to go all in on a good but not great team? It's just they're in a very weird spot where they're kind of stuck in mediocrity. It's kind of like the Minnesota Vikings of the NBA right now, just stuck at the spot, man. And I don't know how they get out of it in a way that would, come out right publicly. Because it's if they don't make a move, it's what are you guys doing? You're complacent. But then when they actually make a move, it's going to be okay, you just don't Klay Thompson. You guys stink. Or, it's a weird balance. Or is this guy enough of a difference maker? I think if a Zach LaVine is somehow available for cheap, which I don't still think is going to happen, and you can deal a Klay and Kuminga, I think you do it. But other than that, I don't really know what they do.
And you have to question too, if you're entering this rebuild, what young assets do you want to trade? What draft picks do you want to trade? Because Steph Curry, you should maximize this window with him because I know he's 35, he's playing an MVP type level, but realistically, he's 35. You can't have this like 7-year window with Steph Curry. You have to maximize the next probably 2 to 3 years. So trading some of those young players, trading some of those draft picks, you just also have to be wary of once that time comes, where are we going to start from without Steph Curry?
Does Zach LaVine move the needle? Like, if y'all were to get him, are you like, okay, now this is a team that's serious in the West?
It would be a lit move.
It'd be cool. It'd give you another shot maker.
Here's the thing. When you have Steph, it makes a little move look better than what it actually is. So,
Good ass statement. Right?
Well, taking everything into account, what do you think the Warriors are to get LaVine?
Depending on who goes, Klay
and a young piece.
You can. It would move the needle a little bit. Like maybe you see a world where they can beat OKC again in the series. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know if it moves the needle in the grand scheme of things. Like you got to think. Like and I get what Dels is saying too. But sometimes when you have a top 5 player in the world and it's Steph Curry, who's done so much for your franchise, you can't think about the future. You can't think about 5-6 years down the road. No, you have to maximize and give him the respect he deserves. That if he can still compete with the Giannis's, with the Jokers of the world, with what? You fucked me up when you said that. But sure, with the Tatums of the world and stuff like that. If you can still compete with those guys, you have to maximize the guy that essentially turns your franchise into $1 billion corporation.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the goal of the Warriors is to win a championship, right? But you guys, this core 3 has been the heart and soul of the team. Klay, Steph, and Draymond. So let's just say there's a world where Klay Thompson does get traded. Let's say it's a Zach LaVine. Let's say it's whoever. It doesn't matter. Let's say he gets traded, and it doesn't end up in a Warriors championship. In history, do people not look at that like, should have never traded Klay?
I mean, of course. You're gonna have the hindsight thinking.
It'll
all
depend on what
here-
Klay does when he leaves.
But we're all sitting here saying that we don't think they're going to win a championship with Klay Thompson.
Yeah, so I
But
think
he said that even if they get LaVine, it's not enough of like a needle mover move to.
But
be
I don't
like,
want
win.
LaVine. I don't like. There's never been a.
Who do you want?
I don't think anybody like.
If you
OG,
can get that DeMar and
Siakam.
Caruso package instead, that
Oh
definitely-
God, no.
But you get Caruso. for
Caruso,
the
sure.
defense.
DeRozan's not
Shooting like
needed.
37% on mid range this year.
I think like we've been linked in Toronto. I've seen OG Siakam. I wouldn't be opposed to OG. OG would be cool. Like if you can swap out OG Siakam for like Wiggins, Kuminga, and like GP, that's fucking dope.
OG's just a healthier Wiggins right now.
Yeah, for sure. Like that's like if now you have a lineup of Steph, Klay, OG, Siakam, Draymond, then that's like a wait a minute. Okay, now this is a team that looks a little bit better for sure.
A little bit.
Yeah, like
It's a powerhouse.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that's a good ass team. But if you're talking about a team with like Steph, Zach, Wiggins, and like Dre, it's like I don't really.
So
wanna
ultimately,
do that,
what I'm talking about is it worth splitting up the main 3 if it's not really bolstering your chances to win a championship? Is it just more beneficial for right now and for the future just to stay loyal to all these 3 guys and let them ride out how they want to ride out, whether that's whether that results in a championship or not, just letting them finish off what they all started
No,
together.
bro, I like that Zach move. I know you may not be all in.
You
but
have to pay Klay, by the way.
Yeah, that's also which
That's
sucks.
not
And
your
you-
responsibility. If
You owe Steph the service of building a championship team around him, regardless of who finishes what with him.
Steph
The
has to know that if we want
Yeah.
a championship around him, we might have to.
I
give
think
up
the
some of
only
your
guy
guys.
that you comfortably stick with him is Draymond. Like
I
those
agree.
two are like this
Yeah,
on the
you
court.
need him
Like,
for defense.
Yeah, so I like he's the backpack for defense. Steph's the backpack for offense. Their pick and roll is one of the best in the league, so you have to keep both of them together. But I think like genuinely, like James mentioned, there isn't an insane move that kind of puts him in championship contention right now, unless Klay comes back to form, and then you can move Wiggins and all this good stuff. But Zach LaVine. I like Zach LaVine as a player, but he isn't the needle mover for them.